The learning is divided into 2 days, today and on Thursday. We will commence at the same time, and we have a lot of interesting, uh, you know, uh, stuff covered on the EDC advanced scanners. And feel free to uh, ask questions in the Q&A section, and we will try to answer that by Thursday, in case if any of those questions do get missed. Okay, and if you have any audio line challenges, please let us know. This is the agenda, day 1 and day 2. We have crafted it in such a way that you will get the best out of this learning. And who are the presenters? We have Thomas, with the Director for Advanced Customer Engineering, and Louis Newell, and is the Senior Product Manager from France, and finally Sohan, who's another expert to be joining us. He's a Senior Product Manager from R&D. All three of these experts will spend their valuable time over the next 90 minutes, and hopefully you'll have a great learning.
Good morning, everyone. So it's nice to have you all guys today on this webinar. So we'll stay just a bit on the PowerPoint slides, and then we'll move into the EDC just to show you in action how our products works, to better understand what value we are delivering and how we can better support our customers in their various challenges, right? So today what we will be focusing most is modernization path, because we believe that this is one of the most common journeys that the customer are struggling on today. So we would like to deliver them the appropriate set of tools or platforms that allows them to go through that journey smoothly, with less number of challenges, right? So I believe we can get started. So yeah, so today we'll be focusing on the EDC advanced scanners in general. Those are called MetaDex recently. So we are back, we returned back to the roots where the product was called that way before the acquisition of the Compact Solutions. So from the version 10.5.2, what you will see in all of the products, you will see that there is no longer EDC advanced scanners. You will see EDC MetaDex as a name of the product. But before we'll jump into the main topic, the regular product safe harbor statement, just to inform that whenever we'll be touching any roadmap, whenever we'll be talking about the functionalities that are going to be released in the future, please be aware that all of the statements made are based on the current best knowledge we have, which means that it might change over time, and you need to be prepared for that. Okay, so let's get back to our main topics. So we'll do some small introduction to the topic, and then we'll go directly into the EDC just to see in details how it works. So as you might be all aware, there are various initiatives that require to have advanced metadata management and cataloging systems. No matter if organization is starting its journey to better support customers or improve collaboration between various teams, and especially between business and technical users, if the organization wants to drive innovation or modernize the environment to be better prepared for future growth, if the organization wants to change the business model to reduce the cost or improve operational efficiency, no matter what the journey is, right? The one common element that is needed to make each and every journey successful is access to the data. But not any data. That is very important. The access to the appropriate data demanded at the time, the data that has appropriate quality, the data that the organization can rely on while making strategic business decisions. So how to support the decision makers, right? How to ensure this is feasible, right? So to comply with such requirements, first of all, you need to have a catalog, an EDC catalog, a central place where whole inventory of organization's assets is stored, right? Catalog that contains not only the information about all of the sources that are storing the data, like tables, files, all of the reports with metrics and attributes, but also all the relationships between those objects, right? Catalog that allows you in details to describe the technical journey. Every critical item, every critical attribute is going through the transformation landscape, right? That allows you to trace back the data from the final reports till the very beginning of the journey to the system of records, right? So it is extremely important to be able not only to have metadata, but to be able to slice and dice this metadata and draw graphical data lineage diagrams that allows you to expose precise data journeys. And that is the EDC, right? That is the catalog that delivers all of this. And on top of it, you have plenty of more functionalities, right? You have all of the AI functionalities, AI capabilities that further extends the regular data lineage functionality. But to fully utilize the data lineage functionality and its benefit, first, what you need to populate the catalog with required information. To do that, Informatica provides, I believe, the widest in the market list of available scanners. As you can see on the left-hand side, we have divided those into two sets, right? There is a set of standard scanners to support common technologies like some BI and analytics platforms, to support Informatica own products, to support some big data tooling. But at the same time, to further enhance the capabilities, Informatica delivers a set of advanced scanners which are present on the right-hand side of the screen to process and to support more complex technologies. Through the advanced scanners, what we are supporting stored procedures from various database flavors. That's why you can see plenty of databases duplicated. They are existing on the left-hand side in the standard scanner set. And at the same time, there are extra capabilities in the advanced scanners that allows you to dive deeper into the metadata coming from the stored procedures. Then we are supporting various ETL platforms, including DataStage, SAP BODS, Azure Data Factory. We are supporting legacy platforms, legacy tools coming from mainframe, which are written in COBOL and JCL, which is pretty important for big organizations which are having pretty old environments, and they are extensively using mainframe tooling to deliver data to the business. And finally, we are also delivering a bunch of different scanners for the analytical and the BI tools like Databricks, like Power BI, like SaaSbase. As you can see, Informatica provides wide coverage when it comes to metadata connectivity, offering extensive capabilities to harvest metadata from various technologies automatically. So out of the digital transformation journeys we have started from, nowadays, one of the most popular are modernization projects, right? So those are extremely important because those are intended to help organizations to prepare for the future growth and development by upgrading the technical platforms to the higher level, right? So normally those are introduced to increase development productivity or increase in flexibility, or simply to use the advantage of speed and functionality of modern systems. But as it usually happens, when you are starting the new journey, there are some typical challenges involved, right? So what are the typical challenges when triggering modernization projects of the IT transformation platforms? So someone said, part of figuring out where you want to go is if knowing where you are now. And I believe this is a very true statement. To be able to properly prepare to the modernization project, not only our future goals needs to be clear and properly defined, but first of all, we need to know our current systems inside out. When planning the project, right, on the level of inception stage, to properly scope such project or predict required timeline, required resources, we need to have complete knowledge about the entire environment. At least on the high level, we need to understand existing data flows, and we need to be aware of all of the underlying technologies, right? So this is very difficult without holistic view of the transformation technologies, right? So either you can invest a lot of efforts, you can engage multiple teams, many people to collect the required knowledge, or you can leverage the capabilities and acceleration that EDC provides. During the planning phase, to avoid the big bang approach, right, which is rarely successful, to be honest, we need to be able to divide the scope into manageable parts. Once again, Without full picture of the environment, this might be a very challenging and error-prone task. With support of EDC catalog, the exercise is, I would say, doable in a reasonable time with acceptable efforts, because the tooling is delivering a lot of acceleration to the process to allow you to get better insight about the environment in a better automatic way. Another challenges are project execution and testing. How to measure project progress, right? How to validate which flows have been successfully migrated. How to verify if all the reports have been covered and the processing is built on top of the appropriate sources. All these questions can be nicely supported with data lineage, where required information is available on demand whenever needed, right? You can draw all of those graphical diagrams that will first of all show you what has been covered, what is the data flow that has been prepared, how the data is moved through the new environment, right? And you can compare the old version with the new version to double check if everything has been covered, if everything has been taken care of, right? What is also very important is that what you need to be aware of is that when you are triggering the modernization project, very often you are also introducing some further enhancements to the environment, right? It's pretty rare situation where you are migrating one-to-one. Usually you are adding some extra functionalities because it is a great occasion to do that, right? Because if you are already starting and you are investing into migrating, into modernizing into the new platform, why not to further extend it? So there will be never one-to-one validation, but at the same time, if you are fully aware what has been migrated, what is the current flow, what was the previous flow, you can easily compare those, right? You can easily validate if the goal has been achieved, if your processing represents whatever you want it to be in the new platform. Recently, we are observing more and more customers transitioning their systems on operation to the cloud. This means there is a growing demand to modernize existing on-prem system into the modern platforms. We see all Microsoft customers, users of integrational services or reporting services, to transition to Azure Data Factory and Power BI. And the same is applicable to the users of various appliances, like, for example, Teradata, right? So companies that are more and more data lakes oriented are moving transformations to the cloud to be better integrated with cloud storages, right? So what we are observing is that the customers that previously were extensively using Teradata platforms are moving into the Snowflake to be able to better utilize their current environment, their current technical landscape. So these are the challenges and these are the trends we see on the market. So right now, how we can help our customers, how we can help our users to be more effective and to be more successful in those types of journeys. So now let's see in action how EDC and advanced standards can support those journeys. So let me go into the EDC platform and let me show you what we can help, how we can help customers with those journeys. So let's assume that we are focusing on the first modernization path, right? So we are the old on-prem Microsoft users, right? So we are using reporting services, we are using integrational services, we are using analytical services as well, that is preparing some cubes in the middle. And we would like to modernize our environment. We would like to shift into the cloud. We would like to use the functionalities of Azure Data Factory. We would like to move our reporting into the Power BI platform. We would like to finally use the full power of the cloud data lakes, right? So how we should get started this project, how we should even think about what needs to be done to be able to make the whole journey, to be able to make whole exercise successful. So what we have start with is, first of all, as you remember from the slide, we need to know our systems inside out, which means that either we would collect the knowledge about all of the underlying processes by asking various teams, which of course is time-consuming operation, right? Because this requires number of people to be involved, number of people to share their knowledge, right? To combine the dictionary for the managers to be able to even start thinking about the modernization projects, or we can tackle it in a slightly different way, right? What we can do, we can build the knowledge in the EDC catalog by scanning those underlying technologies to have better understanding what do we have right now, and then based on that we can plan how and what we want to move into the new platform. So let's assume that we have those Microsoft Stack technologies. We have already scanned those. Later on, I will show you how does the magic happens behind the scene. But let's assume that we already did the homework, right? So we have all of the metadata loaded through the advanced scanners into the EDC. So how we can leverage this information? So let's assume that we will search for our SSRS reports, right? So because we would like to focus on particular reports because those are the most critical for our business, and we want to start with the most important reports in the first stage, right? And then we would like to enhance it later on, right? So let's go into the EDC. Let's search for our resource where all of the SSRS reports has been scanned. We can click on our resource. We can see number of different objects scanned and delivered from the environment. And please remember that the whole information that you can see in EDC has been derived automatically, which means that we just connected to the particular technology. We have configured the advanced scanner, and the metadata has been injected into the EDC automatically. And right now we are just leveraging the fact that the metadata is already in the catalog. So we can open the reports, and we can see that in our environment, we have 4 reports that are utilized by our users. And as you can see, clearly we can identify that those reports are utilized, those reports are being populated, and those reports are being published to the end users. And let's assume that we would like to assign some priorities, right? We don't care about those 3 in the bottom, but the first one is critical for us, and we want to make sure that this one is being migrated into the new cloud platform in the first shot. So what we can do, we can click on that report and we can start collecting our knowledge about it, right? So what we can do, we can see what types of metrics, attributes are on that report, but this is maybe not so important at this stage for us. But we would like to learn about complete upstream and downstream for that report. So we can draw something which is called data lineage. And what we are getting on the screen is a clear information how the report is being delivered, how it is being populated through various technologies in our environment. So this is a clear message to the team that to make sure that this report will be up and running in the new modern environment, to be able to support full population process in the new environment, we need to migrate not only the reporting layer with this report information, but also there is some advanced analytical services involved in the middle. And there are a number of different sources which are coming from the SQL Server, or some probably files which are derived from integrational services, which are integrated through the integrational services involved in the processing. So this is our whole journey that we need to see finally in our new cloud platform to make sure that this report is still up and running and the business will be able to utilize it. So in the first shot, we are getting the very first level, very high level picture about the processing. What we can do right now, if we are right now aware what types of resources are involved in this processing, we can expand all just to get more insights about this processing. So what we have so far identified is that when we are talking about the report as a critical item that needs to be modernized to the new platform, to be able to make the whole exercise successful, if we want to migrate the whole population process, we need to touch also the analytical services and probably integrational services processes to move the whole population chain into the cloud. So what we can learn here by expanding all of the object is that indeed this report is built on top of the data set in the reporting services layer, which is called dataset 1. So we know that something similar will need to be built in the Power BI environment. This is getting populated through the analytical services, where we have some cubes that are built, right? We can see some dimensions, we can see some measures which are responsible for metrics and attributes population on the reports. Those are built on top of the data views, and those further are built on top of the tables or files stored in our file system, right? So we can clearly identify all of the core assets involved in the processing. So if we want to move everything into the cloud, so we would need to take care of all of those, either to leave them in the existing databases, or we would like to move them into the cloud databases. At the same time, we would like to move maybe some CSV files to the cloud storages, right, to the data lakes, to make them available from the cloud in the cloud, right? So this is something that we need to do. But if we would like to dive deeper to better understand what those processes are, right, how we need to, what type of logic has been covered behind the scene to populate those various elements, what we can do in EDC, we can turn on something which is called transformation layer. And right now, whenever there is any transformation process hidden behind the scene, the orange bubble shows up, right? Which means that some technology, some processes have been hidden in the first diagram that are representing a technical processing. And if, for example, for some reason, we would like to focus on this process, right? We would like to find out, okay, here we have a DIM product. This DIM product has been, based on the screen, based on this diagram, has been populated out of the DIM product part 2 and DIM product part 1. So what has been done behind the scene to populate our DIM product? So due to the fact that everything has been loaded through the advanced scanners, we have two options how we can do this. First of all, we can enter the detailed lineage just to get more insights about the technology which has been involved in the processing. And what we can ultimately learn is that this DIM product, which is built on top of those two CSV files, have been populated by a load DIM product data task, which is SSIS process, right? So we can clearly see that there is an SSIS process stored in the following location that has been responsible for this data movement, right? So this process needs to be also migrated to the Azure Data Factory or called from the ADF pipeline to make sure that this DIM product is nicely populated from those two CSV files. And if we would like to dive deeper, right, because maybe this information is not enough for us, right? We are the extremely technical people, and we would like to get insight about this process, how this has been designed, right? How the logic has been delivered and developed to provide those data movements, right? So there are two options how you can do this. Option number one, either you will switch to the SSIS Development Studio to be able to get one level lower to be able to see the process in its source technology. That's one option. But of course, this requires either to have an access to SSIS. This requires to switch between the platforms. This requires maybe to involve an IT person or subject matter expert from the integrational services to help you with that. But what I can also do on this very high level, I can click on my load DIM task, and I can use the advantage that this has been loaded through the advanced scanners, which means that I have something which is called visualization link handy, right? I can click on that link and I will be moved into the advanced scanners UI to get better understanding how the flow, how the data task has been developed inside of the source technology. Of course, based on that, you cannot fully reverse engineer the entire logic, but you can at least understand how this has been constructed, what types of components were used over there, what types of operations were used over there inside of the SSIS data task to better understand what needs to be developed in the new technology, right? You can better understand in the graphical way what are the following steps between the sources and the targets which you have seen in the EDC before, right? So right now what I can do, I can expand each and every object. For example, the DIM product, I can focus on each and every column and I can highlight the full transformation journey to see how the data was flowing through the decomposed process, right? So I can see that product alternate key, for example, has been derived out of the dim product part 1. And this has been built on top of the 2 columns, right? There is a column product alternate key and product key, which are needed to be able to populate destination column, right? And I can keep expanding the composed flow to see in which step operations were applied, right? So as I can see in the very first transformer on the SSIS level, something has happened, right? Because out of the 2 columns, we have moved the data into a single column. And if I'll click on that guy, I'll find out that the product alternate key at this stage has been built by adding product key to the product alternate key. So due to the fact that most likely these are the strings. If these are the strings, then most likely this was a concatenation. If this was a integer or numeric value, then this has been simply summarized together just to get one value, one ID to represent product alternate key. And then this has been passed through a number of different steps until the final landing zone, final column has been reached and the data has been saved. So as you can see, without leaving EDC, just by having the metadata loaded into the advanced scanners, we are not only able to see the data flows, right? We are able to identify all of the technologies. We are able to go one level down to see all of the transformations inside my processing to better understand the process. So if I will return back to my initial screen, right? So this is what I have learned so far, right? I was able to clearly identify the technologies involved. I was able to clearly identify what types of data sets, what types of processes were involved. What if in my modernization project, I would like to slightly cleanse my environment, right? I don't care about the entire report because maybe this was not utilized as I thought it will be, right? What if out of the entire report, I care about only 2 elements, right? I care about the employee name because that's what I want to see on my final report in my modernized environment, and reseller sales amount, and I don't care about the rest, right? What I can do, I can select those 2 columns, I can click OK, and then I can see the new requirement for the modernization project for this particular critical data element, right? I can see that to migrate report having those 2 columns only, this is the upstream I need to take care of to be able to say that I completed my migration, right? I have everything what I need in my new cloud platform that is fully supporting the report that is most important for my business. So on the high level, I can see once again on the resource level, which resources are involved in the upstream layer. And all of my objects are divided into 2 sets, right? There is a data objects number, which represents table level objects that are involved. And there are data elements, which are tied to the column level objects to be able to properly visualize how many objects, how many columns were involved in the processing. And once again, what I can do, I can expand all just to see the full journey of my data, right? So I can clearly see that to be able to deploy this report in the new platform, having those 2 columns only, I need to take care of those types of processes, right? I need to take care of whatever logic has been applied in the analytical services. I need to take care of this logic that has been applied in my SSIS platform, right? And whenever there is any transformation involved, whenever I would like to see what has happened in this particular place to be able to implement pretty similar or similar logic in my new platform, I can click on the object, because here what I can see is that this full name has been somehow calculated on the analytical services layer out of those 3 columns, right? Out of the last name, first name, and the middle name. So let's see what logic has been applied in my source technology to be able to deliver that value. I can click on my column, I can go to the overview and system attributes, and I can see the full expression, right? So this is the beauty of this tool, that without leaving the graphical environment, without any knowledge about the underlying technologies, you can see what types of processing has been applied, not only the relationships on the table level, not only the relationships on the column level, but also all of the transformations applied on the data on the way between the system of records and the final reporting layer where the data is getting published to the business users. And in this situation, what I can see is that this employee name has been calculated through this case statement, right? So there is a case, and in case middle name is null, then the employee name consists of first name plus space plus last name. In other cases where middle name is present, it consists of first name plus space plus middle name plus dot plus space plus last name, right? So this is the logic, right? Somehow someone invented such logic to build a employee name, right? So that's how it has been constructed on the way. So as you can see, I have very precise, very detailed picture about the processing without leaving my EDC catalog. So based on this information, first of all, what you can do, you can clearly identify the technologies. You can clearly, because as you remember, we have started from the inventory, right? So we know what is the inventory. We know how many objects do we have. We can select those which are the highest priority. We can draw lineage diagrams for those which are the highest priority. And then based on that, we can prepare our scope. We can divide our project phases, right? We can prepare our project phases by dividing the scope into the smaller manageable chunks, right? And then when executing the project, we can clearly see what and how this has been designed in the source technology. We have full insight about the processing that has been developed in the old-fashioned products which are stored on-prem. And I'll show you one additional thing, which I believe is a great feature when it comes to the modernization projects, because one thing is to draw diagrams. Another thing is to deliver this insight also in a slightly different way, in a tabular way for the team, right? So whatever I can see here, right, because I can expand all and I can see that this report in the upstream side has those types of elements, right? What I can also see, what I can also get out of this picture is a tabular picture where all of my assets that are on my diagram are divided into the two sets, right? One set is asset lineage summary, which is nothing else like the full upstream to my report, right? And as you can see on the left, on this list, I can see all of the objects which are on the left side of my report. And I can further slice and dice this list to get the list I care of, right? Maybe what I would like to get, I would like to get only the tables, right? I would like to see what tables are involved and are needed to be moved maybe to the cloud database to be able to support my processing. And this is the list I need to take care of, right? Maybe I want to focus on some other elements, and I can slice and dice the information the way I want to. And further, what I can do, once I'm satisfied with the list, I can export the summary into the Excel spreadsheet, right? And I can share this information with the people that not necessarily have access to the EDC, right? So for just to use the benefit of the data stored inside of the EDC, I can prepare a list and I can share with the team just to make sure that all of the items that I need to have in my new cloud platform to modernize the process are properly handled and properly migrated. This is one of the sets, right? Another set, which is, I would say, equally important in the modernization path, is asset impact summary. Here, the list is empty, which is great, right? From modernization perspective, this is great because there are no other items which are dependent on my report, which means that if I will take care of the upstream, then by moving this into the cloud, right, by switching the report from one place to another, I will not harm other processes. But if there are any items which are dependent, which are relate somehow to my items which I will be moving, it is always worth to double check what might be impacted, what still needs to be either tested or maybe also added to the migration to make sure that everything what I care of will be still up and running the following day, right? Just not to be surprised when we are releasing the project in the cloud. We are introducing to the team the information that, okay, from now on, this report is cloud-based. we have moved it into the Azure, and just not to be surprised that the very next day someone starts screaming that something has failed, right? That something has some chain has been broken, and it is impossible to deliver some other elements to our business, which might be maybe not as important, but also very important from the operational perspective. So those two assets, those two lists are extremely important, because you can not only make sure that whatever you will be migrating will be moved from one place to another, but also you can double check, and you can do this for any item, for any object on the in your catalog, right? You can make sure that nothing will be broken when you will modify or you will move some objects from one place to another. So this is how to prepare for the migration journey, right? So how to start thinking about the modernization project, right? First, you need to get full insight, you need to get full knowledge about your current environment, about your current processes, to properly prepare for the project. And right now, let me show you how does the magic happens, right? Because what I was mentioning at the beginning is that you have always two options, right? Option number one, you can do this on your own by engaging a number of people to deliver the knowledge. Of course, this is feasible, right? But you would need to, just to handle this type of processing, most likely we'll need to engage the BI team just to take responsibility for the reporting layer. You would need to involve someone that is responsible for analytical services. Maybe that will be the same team as the reporting services, but not necessarily. You will need to involve the ETL team that is responsible for preparing the ETL platform and ETL processes. And all of those teams would need to cooperate at the same time to deliver the full knowledge about the processing. And if something is done manually, let's call it this way, it is always error prone, right? There might be always some mistakes in the reports, and the whole execution and testing phase would be more painful later on. So what you can do, you can draw those data lineage diagrams automatically, but first, before you can do this, you need to scan your catalog. You need to scan your source technologies through the advanced scanners to derive the knowledge. Let me show you how this has been done for this initial piece of information that we needed to have, right? So to be able to deliver the information about the SSIS, SSIS, SSRS technologies, you need to scan those technologies and deliver metadata into the ADC catalog, right? And everything happens automatically through the advanced scanners. So we have a dedicated processing chains for each and every technology. And as you can see, for example, if I would like to have the SSIS being processed, scanned, and metadata delivered into the EDC catalog, I need to pick up a conversion path, which is called Microsoft SSIS to EDC, right? The only thing I need to take care of is I need to provide the configuration, which means that either I will provide the export files from my SSIS to be scanned. Another option is, and it depends on the SSIS deployment model, I can select the SSIS DB as my source of information when I can connect to the existing database, right, where all of those data tasks and parameters are being stored and developed, right? And I can automatically derive my source information from that place, right? There's no need for any extraction, but it always depends on the deployment model, right? So once I have my sources defined, then I need to define maybe some connections, because my data tasks might be referencing, and probably will be referencing, because this is an integrational services, right? Will be referencing various probably heterogeneous sources, right? So I need to connect to those sources to verify if the reference table exists, that the reference columns exist. I need to validate, for example, if inside of the code there is select asterisk being used, what does asterisk mean? I need to pull out from the catalog information about list of the columns for the underlying tables, etc. So we need to have access to the database catalogs that are referenced by the process. And just to be very transparent here, so this is the information that you will. There's no need to know this up front, right? The beauty of the advanced scanner is that the configuration process is an iterative process, which means that you are starting with the bare minimum information about your source code. Usually you are starting with the information, okay, this is my source, it is stored here, and you are running the processing and you are learning from the execution logs what else you need to take care of to make the scan successful, right? And in the log file, you will be getting messages like, my dear user, of course, in a slightly different words, right? But I have identified that there is a connection established to the database using logical name ABCD. Please tell me what it is, right? If you will get such information, because in SSIS there will be some logical names used, like here, right? Those are called database connection keys to identify the database. You will need to map this connection key with the appropriate database entry, right? And in the advanced scanners, you are building your connection registry folder where all of those databases have defined connections, JDBC connections, right? Where you are defining the URL, credentials, how to connect to the database catalog to extract whatever is needed on the processing way to get the full insight about the processing, right? So, but this is something you will learn from the log file and you will be adding when it is needed, right? So there's no need to know everything up front, because Advanced Scanner will deliver the required insight, what needs to be done next to get further with the harvesting. So you need to provide a source. Once you are identified in the log that there are some connections, you need to provide those connections, right? And the only thing later on you need to provide is you need to provide the information. Okay, right now, where to load your metadata. So of course, once again, there are two options. You can either first in the dry run mode, as we call it, you can just push the metadata into the files where you are playing with this configuration in this iterative way, right? Where you are enhancing the configuration until it is fully processed, right? But once you are ready to push metadata into the catalog, you need to switch the mode into the load using REST API. So here, as you can see, there are two modes: generate output files or load using REST API. You need to provide the information where your EDC catalog is stored, and the only what is the resource name under which you want to load metadata, and the only thing you have to do later on is to press the run button. And what would happen is that the processing will be triggered and the information will be pushed into the catalog automatically. So we will, in case you have defined here as a source files, we will grab those files, we will scan those files, we will prepare the output and then push it into the catalog. If you have defined a connection to the source through the SSIS DB, we will connect to the SSIS DB, we will grab the information about the source code, we will scan it, and we will push the metadata into the catalog. And once it is there, you are able to do exactly this. You are able to repeat exactly the same analysis as we did a minute ago, right? Where you are able to slice and dice the metadata. You are able to draw data lineage diagrams. You are able to get full inventory and full insight about what you currently have to properly prepare for the migration process. And the same is applicable, whatever I have described for the integrational services, the same is applicable for each and every technology that we are supporting. So as you can see, here we have the integrational services. For the reporting services, pretty much the same similar information, right? So as you can see, the same modules are here, right? The same enterprise data catalog writer information that needs to be filled in. The only difference is in the first module, right? The first module is nothing else like the information how to connect, how to get the source code data. In the previous situation, we were talking about the integrational services files. Here we are talking about the reporting layer files, right? And depending on the source technology, there might be different methods how you are accessing the data, right? When we are talking about the database, you are connecting through the JDBC to the database. When we are talking about the integrational services, either you are leveraging the exports or you are leveraging the SSIS DB connection, etc. Right? So there are different ways how you can get access to the source code depending on the source technology. And once again, you have to configure that. When triggering the executions, you are learning about some additional missing things, you are running it, you are done, right? Then analytical services, the same situation. The first module is specific to the source technology. You are providing the source code, you are getting the database connection details whenever those are needed and reported in the log file, you are running this, you are done, right? So that's how you should progress with the advanced scanners to get full insight, to get data lineage diagrams inside of EDC. So as you can see, what we did, we have covered the initial part of the modernization project, right? The first phase, I would say, right? We have covered the inception, we have covered the planning, and a bit of execution, right? Where you can always go to this diagram to see how this has been designed, what are the relationships, how this code has been developed, right? So this is the first picture, the first set of information is extremely helpful to plan and trigger the modernization project. So right now, let's assume that we already did it, right? So we have decided that this is the right way to go to. We are migrating. We have split the scope into the appropriate phases. We have started the project, which means that we are in the execution path for the modernization project. So what we can do right now? So of course, once again, we will leverage the EDC and its capabilities. So the same way as we did for the old-fashioned systems, for the current state, we'll be doing for the newly developed, newly modernized environment. So in these situations, we are moving the whole Microsoft stack to the Microsoft stack, including some Databricks ingestions, right? So what we can do, we can use the capabilities of the advanced scanner, and we can also scan the new code and then compare it side by side, right? Of course, as I was mentioning at the beginning of our webinar, it is pretty rare situation where the modernization goes one-to-one, right? Always, due to the fact that there is already an investment, every organization wants to further enhance the environment, right? Wants to further add some extra elements to the processing just to make it more robust, just to make it more functional, just to deliver extra value to the business, to prove that this modernization is not only about the infrastructure, it's also about the functionality and benefits that we can deliver later on for the end user, just to make our daily work more successful. So what we can do right now, let's assume that we are migrating to the Azure, we are migrating to the Power BI. We did exactly the same magic with the newly developed code. We have scanned it through the advanced scanner, right? So what we can do, the same way like we did for the reporting services, we can go to our Power BI cloud, right? And we can find out that there is a report, right? And this report in the new cloud has been called Power BI Cloud Demo, right? It has a slightly different name because that was the new naming convention. But what we can also do here, we can draw data lineage diagram as well, right? And although the processing might look slightly different, right? Because we have moved some of the files into the cloud, so they are no longer on our hard drives, but they are stored in the data lakes. We have moved some of the files to the S3 because maybe that this is the new location where the data is being stored. We have moved some of the processing to the Databricks. We have moved some of the processing to the Azure Data Factory. We have also called some SSIS directly from the Azure Data Factory, just not to migrate each and every element from old to the new technology. But what we can see here is we can see the data flow, which means that from the logical perspective, we can try to compare if the full transformation chain has been migrated in a way that it has been intended, right? So what we can see is that this is the full upstream for our report. We can expand all just to learn more how this has been derived, right? And as you remember, initially on our Power BI, what we had in our SSRS reports, we had just a data set one that has been used to derive information for our report. Here we have a data set, we have a data set which is delivering the data, but this data set, due to the fact that in this Power BI, someone wanted to further enhance the metadata, someone used on the Power BI level also some procedures, right? So what I can also see here is that how this particular element has been introduced to this processing and what has been done, right? So I can see that on the Power BI level, there is a data set, and this data set has not only some files, right, like we had before, or tables on the source side, but there's also a stored procedure. So I can identify what has been done and if this has been done in a way that we wanted it to be, right? So I can click on my result set. I can go to my overview tab, and once again I can see my visualization, right? And as you will see, regardless of the technology, it doesn't matter if we are talking about the integrational service, we are talking about the stored procedures, if we are talking about maybe about SaaS base, it doesn't matter, right? The same granularity of the data is being provided for the end user, for the user's benefit, right? So what I can see here is that there is a procedure that has been invoked. I can clearly see that this procedure has such body, right? Because that's what has been scanned through the advanced scanner. As you can see, not very sophisticated, but at the same time, it derives some result sets, right? So it derives some transformation, like upper region name to the region name, and it derives also some where clause where we are filtering out every records which are where total is lower or equal to 0, right? So this is the procedure. Of course, I can once again go down to the level of columns where I can double click. I can clearly see what has happened in every place. I can see the proper transformation, proper control fields which are used, right? Like for example, where clause. All of the information is nicely delivered, right? And whenever there's any expression, I will be also able to see that, right? I will be able to see what has been done, how it has been done, what types of algorithm, what types of mechanism has been applied on the data on the way. So here I can see that there was a procedure. I can clearly identify if this is something I wanted to see on my in my cloud environment or my Power BI report. So I can return back to my previous stage, and I can continue the journey, right? Just to identify if everything what I have here, right? So let me go back to my report. If I can validate if everything what I had on my previous report has been properly migrated, right? Or if intentionally this has been redesigned to deliver some extra functionalities, right? Because we need to remember that this is also very common in the modernization project. So I can identify if all of the CSV files have been nicely moved. Right now, there might be, those are a different assets because those are stored like here in the Azure blob. Some are stored in the ADLS. Some are stored in the Amazon S3, right? So those data might be spread across different data lakes, across different cloud storages. So these are no longer the same assets from the logical perspective, but at the same time, I can validate if the whole logic has been properly moved from one environment to the another to double check if my exercise has been accomplished properly, right? And the same way like I did for my previous on-prem products, I can turn on my transformation just to get one level lower to validate each and every element, right? So before I was checking because something new appeared in the Power BI, which was previously not developed inside of the reporting services. I wanted to double check what does the procedure do, right? And I was able to clearly identify, okay, this is the procedure, this is doing just selecting the data and applying some extra filter. Okay, this is correct according to the new requirements, done, tick, right? Correctly migrated. But here I have another process and I would like to validate what it is, right? How it has been designed, what logic has been applied, just to double check if this is a correct thing, or maybe if this is an enhancement and this is expected add-on, or maybe if this is an incorrect process that I want to modify, right? So I can click on my detailed lineage once again. And once again, first of all, what I will identify is what technology is used behind the scene. In this situation, we can see that it is nothing else like the Azure Data Factory activity, where we have the load transaction activity name, which is taking the data from the view, from the table, and is pushing the data into the destination table. Once again, I can either stay on this level and be fully satisfied that this has been done according to my new requirement, or I can click on my activity. I can go to my system attributes. I can go to the visualization to get full picture about the processing, right? Where I can see how the decomposed process looks like, how the destination table or tables, right? Because there might be few of them populated through this process have been designed, right? How this has been delivered, right? If there is any aggregation, how this has been aggregated, right? So I can clearly see what has been done in this new technology to validate and double check and make sure that whatever was done is okay and is according to the new requirement that we had in our modernization project. So this is very important for two reasons. First of all, this is important to be able to, on the very high level, identify if particular process has been properly migrated to the new platform, has been modernized, right, and redeveloped in the cloud-based application. I can dive as deep as I want to into the process, into the final process, to find out if everything has been handled, if something else needs to be added, if elements that are extra comparing to the previous process are expected, right? And I can do this by having those pictures side by side, right? So if I am migrating the same process, then at least the sources should be, and the process from the high level perspective should be similar, right? With some small enhancements or with more enhancements, but at the same time, the core logic, core functionality should remain the same, just not to break the process that we have in our environment. Because based on this report, based on those processes, the end users might be making some important decisions, and this is extremely important to do this modernization project in an appropriate way. So this is how it looks like. This is how we can help our customers in their modernization journeys, right? This is how we can help them not only to trigger the process, not only to trigger and start the project, not only to estimate the effort needed, right? Because it's also very important when you are starting the modernization project, what you need to take care of is, first of all, what is the investment you are looking at, right? You need to decide, these are the benefits that I want to achieve, and those might be extremely important just to be able to further develop the company and the organization. But these are the investment costs that you need to take care of to make this successful, right? Because starting the modernization and failing is not something we want to achieve, right? We want to make it successful, which means that we want to be properly prepared to start the modernization, and later on we want to have appropriate tooling to execute it in the right way, to be able to do this step by step, not try to boil the ocean, but to deliver the quick results for the business and start enhancing the environment by adding more and more to the cloud environment, just to make it a progress rather than a big bang approach, right? And data lineage and EDC are extremely helpful because they are helping in each and every stage of this process. They are helping to trigger, and they are helping to execute and verify if the process has been done in an appropriate way. So this is something that I was planning to show you today. One additional thing I wanted to show you as a final word. So how does this final stage related to this picture has been delivered, right? So let me show you once again the advanced scanners. And as I was mentioning before, for each and every technology, regardless if you are talking about the integrational services, reporting services, Power BI, the approach is exactly the same, right? So you have appropriate processing chain, and you have to configure it in the right way, which means that you have to define how to connect to your source. And as you can see, there are pretty similar functionalities across all of those technologies, right? Because whenever we are talking about the business intelligence, whenever we are talking about the ETL platforms, most likely those technologies will be integrating with various sources. That's why you have those connections almost everywhere. the concept is the same, right? The only difference is that behind the scene, a different parsing engine is being triggered just to take care of the metadata harvesting process, right? And what is also very important is that due to the fact that advanced scanners are supporting number of different technologies, a lot of various elements are taken care automatically. For example, as you have seen in our cloud process, right? Someone added the enhancement to the report and has added some procedures to populate the data set. So whenever you are scanning the process, you don't have to know that knowledge about this procedure, right? You will be informed about it to connect to the appropriate database. That's fine. But at the same time, the Power BI scanner will switch the execution context to the appropriate database parsing engine to get proper information from this procedure as well, right? So we will, if, for example, the procedure is taking some input parameters from the Power BI, we will pass those parameters into the database parsing engine, right? The storage procedure parsing engine. We will leverage the knowledge about the execution context. We will parse the procedure and we will return back the results into the parent root technology, which is the Power BI, to continue the processing. That's how you are getting the complete end-to-end lineage, right? Because whenever one technology is calling another technology, we are switching between parsing engines automatically just to leverage this full automation, right? So in case of Power BI, where the stored procedures are being called, we will switch the parsing engine and we will deliver appropriate and complete metadata into the catalog as it should be, right? And the same way, so you are configuring how do you want to access Power BI. Of course, there are a couple of different methods how you can do this. Files, admin user service principal. You are providing required correlated credentials. You are configuring that. You are configuring the output. Run, right? If, for example, you want to do the Azure Data Factory, of course, we are doing exactly the same magic. Azure Data Factory, you are configuring how you want to connect. You are providing all of those credentials, configuring data source connections if those are identified by the scanner. In case your ADF is connecting to the SSIS, because it is possible that not every integrational services is being migrated to the ADF, right? Maybe some Azure Data Factory pipelines will still be calling your old-fashioned SSIS to do some more sophisticated processing because you don't want to migrate it right away, right? In such situations, you are once again scanning the Azure Data Factory, and the underlying SSIS, which is being invoked from the Azure Data Factory, will be taken care of by the scanner automatically, right? The only thing you need to provide is the information that are correlated to the SSIS. That's why in this Azure Data Factory, you have two modules exposed which are tied to the source technology, because there might be Azure Data Factory and the corresponding SSIS, which is being called, right? But the parsing engine will once again switch automatically from the Azure Data Factory to the SSIS just to get full information about the processing. You are configuring the writer module, you are running, and you are done. And what is also very important is that you can either trigger the refreshment process from the catalog, or you can automate the process, and you can do this from the command line, right? Later on, if, for example, all of those processes are properly established, you can run it, I don't know, on the daily, weekly basis, whatever is needed, just to support your testing team to do the appropriate validation, right? So this can be triggered whenever you are providing some changes to the code, and the catalog can refresh whenever it is needed, periodically or on demand, whatever is your preference, to deliver the required information for the execution and testing stage of the project. Okay, so this is something that is covering our first modernization path, right? We were moving from the old-fashioned on-prem Microsoft stack into the cloud stack, where we are using ADF with some additional technologies correlated to deliver our report. And we are supporting the full transformation journey. So this is something I wanted to cover during today's session. So what we will be looking at during the next session, we'll look at another modernization chain from the Teradata into the Snowflake. At the same time, later on, we will focus also on some additional aspects like regulatory compliance, like SaaS base, and how to deal with those types of challenges that our customers might have. I believe there might be some questions, so let me check if there are any. Louis Noel, so are there any unanswered questions that have been asked by the customers?
Yeah, I can take one. There's one about data classification. Dayaka is asking, how can client benefit classifying assets based on data classification? So what we call data classification in EDC, we use a different term. We call it data domains. The data domains discovery basically offer a great way to accelerate the classification. You will be able to very quickly identify certain informations that is out there in databases. So for example, if you have columns that are containing specific data, customer IDs, social security numbers, and so on, you will be able to identify those patterns very quickly. We have additional capabilities that allows us to propagate the information. So for example, if you enable discovery for column similarity, we have the capability to expand the classification, even though in specific areas of your systems, we cannot identify what the pattern of the data or the name of the columns or the fields that are there. We cannot identify them as a simple classification. We can propagate through the similarity capabilities. We can propagate the information of the classification. With that, you can briefly identify all the systems where a specific piece of information is available in the systems. So that's a big value of how to use the data domain discovery, also known as data classification.
So if all other questions have been handled, right? So I believe we can return 20 minutes of everyone's time today. And we will meet again on...
So there's another question from Dayaka about defining custom data domains. Yes, so the way we've been defining data domains in our in IDQ or BDQ, if you are familiar with it, you can define your own. You create your own rules that allows you to identify specific information. So those rules can be based on the metadata. So if you want to identify columns based on their names, you can do so. If you want to add information about or rules that are focusing on identifying data patterns, you can combine those with the metadata rules and create your own custom metadata data domains. So that is available for any customers of EDC. They can customize their own data domains to adapt to what they have in the systems. So for remaining question from Dayaka is how do we classify specific data domain into certain type of data domains? So for example, we can assign those data domains into groups. Today we have like 3 types of groups: PII, PHI, and PCI. Those groups allows us to define what pieces of the information that is shared in the catalog as what we call sensitive, and that allows us to restrict the access to the value frequencies and such if a user doesn't have access to read the sensitive data. So that's how you would do in order to make sure that you can classify the data and protect the information within the category. Hopefully that answers your question.
Any more questions? I believe there are no.
Yeah,
Yep,
I think, Thomas, there is a question on once someone has EDC, what's the architecture of advanced scanners? It has come in the chat.
So I can take that. So for the advanced scanner, so the architecture is very similar. We do have recommendation for the sizing for the advanced scanner application that runs alongside with EDC. So we the advanced scanner or MetaDex software is shipped with EDC. So if the customer has already deployed EDC, they can already just start up the services on it should have been deployed at the same time as EDC. The only thing is that they will have to provide an additional repository to store the metadata. So likely use another schema in the repository of choice that they have already for the Informatica domain and the model repository service. And yeah, just a matter of setting up those connections and starting up with the application, and customers can start using EDC MetaDex. Of course, there's some licensing related to it. So when it comes to advanced scanners, they should inquire with their account team to get access to those scanners individually.
There are some more questions. Like we have a case that a client where we are 2,000 applications. How shall we start it to get Lineage? So definitely, what I would recommend is not try to boil the ocean, right? So if the customer has 2,000 applications, most likely there are some more critical applications that they want to start with, and this is something that they should prioritize in the first step, right? So first of all, it would be good to have the high-level understanding of the data flow to be able to at least to some extent know what applications are, how those are linked together, right? But the main thing is to prioritize the entire scope, set it into the appropriate stages, and then start scanning, right? So this is something that with this volume of code, I would strongly recommend to do this step by step, right? Just to identify the highest priority elements, scan those. And what is also very important that in some situations, when you will be delivering metadata into the catalog, once you will start building your data lineage diagram, you will be able, it will be easier for you to identify where the process stops, right? You will see that there are some ultimate sources on the left side which are not populated by anything. And if you are expecting to see a further upstream because you didn't reach the system of records, right? Then definitely you will need to keep adding on the left side some additional technologies just to extend it on the left side. But definitely with this type of volume, prioritize it appropriately and do this step by step, rather than to try to scan everything at once. Because if you would start scanning everything at once, then you are entering pretty large projects and the first results will be delivered in quite some time, and that's not what you want to achieve probably. Do we do technical transformation in EDC advanced scanners? No. So advanced scanners are just to harvest metadata from the existing code, right? So you are not developing anything in the advanced scanner. You are just extracting the logic out of the existing processes, and you are exposing the logic in a graphical way, right? So we are learning from the source code what has been done in the particular source technology, and we are exposing those relationships, those transformations as they were designed and developed in the source technology.
For Dayaka, I was asking if customer doesn't know about ETLs, etc. I suggest that you get in touch with the operational team at this customer because they are likely having systems that are running and that are maintained on a daily basis. So if there are any such team that are running the systems, they should be aware of the applications that are moving the data around. There is any ETL services that are running. Most likely, they have a scheduler that's run those jobs. So I think you should be inquiring this type of team to learn more about the systems. If the customers that you are, if the contact that you are talking to is not aware of those applications, then likely you will have to get to the IT folks who are actually maintaining these applications.
There's one more question. I assume there would be a limited functionality between MetaDex and custom resources. I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but MetaDex is supporting a number of different sources, right? So which means that there is a list of technologies which can be harvested automatically for the advanced scanners. And whenever the technology is being supported and the functionality for the underlying technology is supported, then the metadata can be automatically ingested into the EDC, right? For those technologies which are not supported by the advanced scanners, for those functionalities which are not on the list of supported elements, there is still a functionality available in EDC where you can derive the custom lineage, right? Where you can build custom resources, where you can add those missing elements into the picture just to fulfill the gap, right? So yes, MetaDex supports only those technologies and those functionalities which are listed in the documentation. For all other technologies which are not supported by MetaDex or by the standard scanners, right? Because we need to remember that those are two sets that supplement each other, right? If it is not supported by any of the scanners delivered by the Informatica, then yes, custom lineage is one of the potential options. Does the scanner needs to be installed on the same machine where the sources are located? Nope. So the only thing we need to have is access to the source technology, right? And depending on the type of the source code of the source technology, there might be different ways how we are expecting the source code to be delivered, right? In case of the databases, we need to be able to ensure that JDBC connection is possible, which means that any potential firewall between the machine where the advanced scanner MetaDex is being installed and the database is open, right? In case of some other technology, it is the same rule is applicable, right? Whenever we are connecting directly to the particular technology, then this connection needs to be possible. For some technologies, we are expecting the source code to be initially extracted. In such case, there is no such restrictions over there because the extraction can be done on the source code server, right? And then it can be simply transitioned through the file transfer to the place from which the advanced scanner can pick up the source code. How does EDC support comparing two different lineages to assess similarities and differences? So there is no any comparison, automatic comparison being involved, right? So what you can simply do, you can depending how those lineage diagrams are correlated, right? If you are using totally different core assets because you have migrated all of the sources from one place to another, then this will be totally disconnected lineage diagrams, but you can have them side by side to validate if the general flow is matching, right? If you will not be changing, you will not be relocating the source assets, right? Like for example, you will stay on the same database, you will be using still the same files for both old system and the modernized environment. Then while drawing the lineage diagram on any of those assets, you should see the duplicated paths, right? That are referencing the asset, right? You should see that that from particular asset, the old system is reading and the new system is reading from, right? The same would be applicable if you are writing to exactly the same asset on the output side, yeah, right? You will be able to see that the old process is writing to that table or to that file, and the new system, the new process is also writing to the very same table and the very same file, right? So depending how your modernization process is being established, if you are completely rearranging your sources or not, you will be either see the lineage on the very same diagram that is related to two different technologies, right? To two different environments, or you will be getting totally disconnected diagrams, but still you will be able to put them side by side to validate if the general core flow is matching. So guys, I would like to thank you for today's time, right? So we have covered one modernization path. During the next session, we'll cover another one, and we will focus also on a slightly different topic where SaaS base will be our main technology to deal with.